folks. Welcome to the Domestic Draft
Man.
Podcast. I'm Evan Bierman here with Dan Slowick. We got a special guest coming on today. We're going to be talking some White Sox. We don't do that very often, so it'll be nice. Dan, why don't you start it off with what you're drinking today, man?
Sounds good, Evan. I have Booze Brothers, Booze Brothers. That's a tough one for me to say. Out here in Vista, California, just north of San Diego. The beer I have is called Buena Vista IPA. It's a 6.8% Indian Pale Ale. It's got 3.7 on Untappd. And a cool story about Booze Brothers. The name gives it away, right? It's two brothers that came together in a garage in 2008, and they decided that we love drinking this stuff. Let's figure out the science behind it and let's go ahead and start brewing our own. So that hobby turned into an actual job. They started brewing and dispersing it out to their friends, family, got really good reaction to it. And in 2013, only about 5 years later, decided to buy their own space out in Vista. And they quickly began operations and got a growing fan base rather quickly. From opening in 2013 in their own space to 2017, they grew to a private event space. From 2017 to 2020, they opened up their second tasting room in Oceanside. In 2021, they continued their growth, opening their second event space, and then also opening the third tap room out in Fallbrook, California. So they are just blowing up right now. The beer is very good. It's very simple. They kind of like to kind of keep it almost like it's still getting brewed out of their garage, that vibe, that feel. It's a double dry hopped West Coast IPA. It's brewed with Eureka, Citra, and El Dorado hops. Notes of stone fruit, citrus zest, and pine resin. Easy drink, cool logo. I like the canning on this one. What about you, man? What do you got?
All right. So the brewery I have today is Flora Brewing. Sarah Flora is a Los Angeles-based home brewer who aims to be the next Martha Stewart of brewing. A few years ago, Sarah purchased a homebrew kit as a gift for her husband, but little did she know that it would turn into her new hobby and the start of her next career. She runs operations for an art gallery by day. On her off days, she does some brewing and documents every stage of the process, reviews her own brews. Since she's won numerous awards for her beers, grown an engaged following on Instagram and YouTube, and received some press coverage as well. So she continues to share her passion for home brewing, and she's planning on opening up her own brewery. And that brings me to this beer. It's 5.6%. It's called Medusa. It's the inaugural commercial brew from Sarah Flora of Flora Brewing. It's not yet rated on Untappd. She just put this out a couple of days ago. Actually, it was brewed in collaboration with Pilot Project over in Logan Square in Chicago. So if you're in the area, Pilot Project, we've talked about on the show many times.
Love that place.
It's a brewery incubator. But you can find it on tap there, and it's canned for sale at Pilot Project as well. And speaking of inaugural, this is the inaugural year of CHGO, and that brings us to our next guest. His name's Herb Lawrence. He is at EC Nerwall 23 on Twitter. And I know, Dan, when you first saw that, you were trying to figure out what that is, but it's Lawrence backwards.
Simple
23 on Twitter. He is the CHGO White Sox co-host, former producer at 670 The Score, and former co-host of Locked On Sox. Herb, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Evan and Dan. It's a pleasure to be here. I have no beer right here because I'm at work right now, but we can drink beer, but our fridge is kind of empty. But we had some Son of Juice earlier.
Nice.
In our CHGO early days. Now we're like 2 months old, so we're pretty old, and we drank it all.
Grizzly Vets now. Yeah, I gotta ask. Looking at your Twitter bio, I noticed that you have your high school and your graduating year in your bio. Mm-hmm. I'm curious of like where the pride comes from, or like what's going on with having Wheaton North repped in your bio.
It's because Wheaton North, if you think about Wheaton, you think more about Wheaton South because they're better at football than we were, especially when I went there. They're the home of Red Grange. You know, if you think about that, the Belushi brothers went to the Wheaton Central, Wheaton South schools. So as a little brother of Wheaton North, whenever I get to shout them out, I will. And we just won a 7A championship. So there's no better time, no more proud moment than winning the 7A football championship as a alumnus of Wheaton North High School. And I'm going back actually on the 21st to be an MC for a jazz concert. So I still stay plugged in out there. So yeah, I love my people out there at Wheaton North. It was the best 4 years of my life, as Coach Rex Lewis used to say.
That's perfect. Cool. Yeah. And so you're from a Western burb. Obviously you've grown into this massive White Sox fan. well-known White Sox fan, you're kind of you're from a Western burb. You kind of get a choice there, right? Of the north side or the south side. So how did you end up being a Sox fan?
Well, my parents, stepdad and my mom really didn't mess with football, baseball, hockey, none of that stuff. So I got to choose all of my favorite teams as a kid, as like a 12, 11-year-old. So I chose the Illini. I did not go to school there. So in 1990,
you're a Leatherneck.
Yeah. And then, I went to Western Illinois for like 6 months and like, hey, you got to do homework, get out. And in the same year, I chose White Sox instead of Cubs. Cubs were just coming off the 89 NL East championship with Jerome Walton, Dwight Smith. And so I could have chose them. And I had gone to Cub games often. And all the people around me at that time were kind of Cub fans. But I was, and I still am, a contrarian. So I was like, let me go to the other side, especially with the White Sox introducing their current pinstripe look with the Old English SOX down the left breast. And so I chose that team. And I always joke that, man, that 12-year-old really put me in a bind with the Illini and the White Sox.
Okay.
I want to go back in past and like, what the hell, man? It's just a lifetime of misery.
Was it all Illinois teams? Did you have a basketball? Did you do any bowls or you get to...
I consider myself more of a Jordan Pippen fan than a Bulls fan. As I look back, I enjoyed those championships. I was of age. I was like in my teens when they won the first three-peat and the second one. And then once they left, I pretty much checked out of the Bulls. Never really was a Blackhawks fan.
Yeah.
And of course, I had to be a Bears fan because it's here. I wish I would have chose smarter on that one also, because that team and their ownership is trash.
Hey.
So yeah,
you got to be miserable with the rest of us.
Yeah.
It's just really horrible. I mean, I got as a grown man, I've got teams I root for. I know that you're out there in San Diego, Dan, and I spent a year out there. I love the Padres, and I love that ballpark. So I can get a little bit more of respite from when the White Sox do what they did on Monday night and look to the Padres, who didn't have a good game themselves versus the Cubs last night. So
I was there.
Yeah,
it was great to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome to see that, and just get to choose, and as your 11-year-old get to decide that this is my team. You mentioned you went to Western Illinois for 6 months.
Yep.
And then we also see you got 20 years of experience in radio.
Mm-hmm.
So how did it start? How did you get in? Did you know that you wanted to be in radio, in sports media? Did that 11, 12-year-old decision of deciding who these teams, the favorite teams, have any influence in that?
Around that same time, I had a baseball coach named Richard Swanson, that would always listen to Score when he would pick me up or drop me off after a baseball or a baseball game or a practice. So I was like, what is this? They talk sports all the time? Wow. So it was like 92, 93. I'm into this. Can I do that? Because I knew about that time I wasn't going to be a Major League Baseball player. I was good, not great. So I was like thinking about the different things I can do with my career. After I left Western, they didn't leave. They kicked me out. I went to IMS, which is Illinois Media School.
Yeah.
And I graduated in 2000. And that same year, I was trying to get an internship at the Score. And the PD at the time the sports director at the time, the guy who was in charge of hiring, was named Jesse Rogers, who now is the ESPN baseball guy for the local teams here.
Mm-hmm.
He said he didn't have any more internships left. So would you be willing to do like part-time Illinois football on Saturdays? I was like, hell yeah. So he hired me pretty much as a part-time producer when I was looking for an internship. And I've been at the Score for 3 different iterations. Left in 2003, came back in 2005, left in 2015, and came back in 2017. And now I left for the final time in 2022.
So you said you kind of grew up listening to 670. I mean, what was it like working for an iconic sports radio station, and one that you were listening to when you were a kid and was like, this is it. This is what I want to be on. I mean, is that just like a dream come true?
Yeah, it was surreal. I was 21 years old when I started working at the Score. And so that was a dream of mine to get into the business. I was just looking for an internship, and they gave me a job. And once they gave me a job, I was like, I'm not giving it back. I'm going to be pushing for a full-time job, which I eventually got a year after that. Things just worked out well for me in my first thing, my first iteration of the score, because somebody got fired or left the business. I got hired to be Les's full-time host like a year into my employment there, which doesn't happen. There's people who've been at the score now for 7-8 years and they still don't have a full-time job. So I got lucky. And that's why I tell kids all the time, it's like being lucky is the best thing you can be. Like people use it as a pejorative all the time. It's like, oh, he's just lucky. It's like, no, lucky is good. You should be lucky. All the people who you know who are successful got lucky. Somebody hired them. It's opportunity meets preparation, and I was ready for the job. So it was surreal. I worked with Mike North. I worked with Doug Buffone as a 24-year-old on their program when they hired me up to do middays for them. I was like, wow, overwhelmed, but also ready for the job. And after that, I was like, oh, it's way too much, too fast. So I left this business early to chase some money, which is never a good idea.
Never ends up well. Yeah, that never ends up well. I walk in the halls of 670. And of course, Evan and I both listened to it growing up as well, just like you did. I think most people in the Chicagoland area do as well. There's a lot of iconic personalities that you hear on that radio. I'm curious, is there anybody when you meet them in person that kind of like turns off the radio personality and is like a different person in person?
Not with the score, but there's a bunch of we just call them Randy Radio guys, just like and then you talk to them and it's just all regular voice. Like I think the score itself lends itself to being authentic, and if you are not, the audience can see through that and they can hear through that, and they don't like it. So yeah, everybody on the score, North was like that. I get asked every single time I used to go out, hey, is Dan Bernstein really that? I'm like, yes, that's Dan Bernstein.
Yeah. Is he that miserable?
What he is. That is him. But he is also a sweet guy, you know, at times. You know, if he gets get a couple of drinks in him, he gets real sweet. So yeah, the guys on the score, guys and girls on the score are as advertised. They're the same people. But yeah, I've met people throughout radio that are different personalities, even using different names, like stage names. And then when they get off of the air, they're like, oh, no, I'm this guy. I mean, if you want to have specifics, it's Man Cow. When I met him for the first time, he's like, hey, mild manner. He's like, hey, my name's Eric. How you guys doing?
Really?
Yeah, I'm just here to do this, that, and calm, relaxed, not even bombastic. Right when he gets on the air, Man Cow, I'm this guy. I want to talk about things and sex and man things. And yeah. So he puts on a whole act, at least back then. And maybe now he's just becoming the guy Man Cow. But when I met him, he was Eric. He literally introduced himself as such, even though at that time he was big. He was on radio. He had a TV show. So yeah, that guy was the example that you guys probably think about. Like, he's not that guy off the air. Maybe he is now, but back then he was not.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What about guests? Like, do you have a favorite guest that you ever had on? Did you do any of the guest booking when you were at 670?
Yeah. So for my last job, I worked for Lawrence Holmes a couple times.
Right.
And I would be both doing the board and guest booking. So my favorite guest, that's hard to say. I'm trying to think of a guy or a girl that we've had on that was just spot on all the time. Well, one guest is Layla Rahimi, which she eventually joined the score. Now, yeah. She was always
blowing up
with Lawrence. And let's see, Charles Tillman, the former Bears safety or cornerback, probably should be a Hall of Famer. He would call in and we would have this scheduled like at 8:00, and he would be supposed to go off at like 8:20. He's got to run commercials. Charles Tillman wouldn't want to go off. He's like, hey, is that it? No, I don't want to talk football. Let's talk about something else. And we would go on with Charles Tillman for at least 35, 40 minutes. And we got to jam all the rest of the spots into the rest of the hour because Charles was just so busy talking. And then the last person I'll mention is a guy named Fife Dog from A Tribe Called Quest.
Yep.
Lawrence had him in studio 2 times. One time was just he was in town for the McDonald's All-American tournament, which was in Chicago at that time, like permanently. And then I got his number from somebody, and he came into the studio. I was just expecting him on the phone. Came in the studio, had a great interview. One of my sister's favorite artists of all time, and I love Tribe Called Quest, and it was great. And then he came in the year after that when I was in Vegas at the time. I booked him. Came in the studio, got an autograph from my sister, and he was just perfect because he knows sports a lot. That's what he lives by. And then we got some hip hop stories from him too.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, just to be a fly on the wall with Fife Dog and just like chopping it up, seeing some of his takes. So now you're at CHGO. So enough of 670 and talking about the old days. Let's talk about now.
Yeah.
CHGO. How did this start? And what's it like to work there, man?
The main guy of All City, which is the network we work for, is named Brandon Spano. He started this a couple years ago in Denver. Their call letters are DNVR.
DNVR.
And so he saw success there. They have their own bar there, DNVR bar, where they sell merchandise, sell beers, and your membership gives you a certain amount of alcohol. So it's really cool there. We're, hoping to be that eventually. He called me like in January, asking my interest, gauging my interest in maybe doing something that's a podcast every day, which I had already done with Locked On Sox with Chris Tannehill, who also works at the Score. And I was thinking to myself, man, I would love to do that. Talking about the Sox 5 days a week would be my dream. And they're paying me actual money to do it, because the Locked On Sox, while great, didn't pay you a lot. And I was still doing the Score job. So it was a thing covering the White Sox 5 days a week and then also having to do my regular job. This is the opposite. I don't work at the Score anymore. This is my job now. I talk about the White Sox, good, bad, indifferent, every day. So Sunday through Thursdays when we work, we have Fridays and Saturdays off. And if the Score was kind of a dream job, this is the 100% dream job, to get paid talking about the White Sox 5 days a week. And I cannot believe this is my life right now. It's unbelievable.
Happy for you, man. Really happy for you.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Now, maybe not so fantastic yesterday. We could start with last night's game, I guess, when we move over to the Sox talk here. A lot of Sox fans saying it's the worst loss they've seen in a long time. I know, just speaking from some of the highlights that I saw, Gavin Sheets dropping that one out and right.
Yep.
I want to hear your take on this real quick before we move into, talking a little bit more about the Sox. But just last night's game, I feel like was a heartbreaker.
It was the worst White Sox loss that I can recall. There was another one in Kansas City a couple of years ago, I think 2016. They were up 7-1, so the same deficit, lost that game 8-7 and a walk-off to Kansas City. That was in Kansas City, so you can kind of understand, the momentum of the fans and them getting hyped up and then eventually winning that game. It was a home game last night, and the White Sox played well, 8-2 up until the ninth inning, and everything fell off the table. Like errors, multiple errors. Tim Anderson with a lackadaisical error on a relay throw that was hit right in his glove, hit off his glove, went to first base. That runner goes from first to third. Then the next play, Yoan Moncada boots one on his first game back from the IL. Then eventually Josh Naylor, former Padre, crushes a grand slam to tie the game. And then eventually he, in the 11th inning, hit a 3-run home run. I was like, where was this in San Diego, Josh? We needed you back then. And everybody on the Guardians now is San Diego adjacent. Like, they traded a bunch of people for Mike Clevenger, also Brad Hand and all other people. So I look at that team. I was like, golly, there was a lot of Padres there. And today, Cal Quantrill's pitching versus the White Sox. Yeah. So I was like, man, the Guardians, they're just Padres East. So
He's
it was
fantasy streamer.
What is that?
Yeah.
I said Cal's a fantasy streamer, classic, always on the waiver wire.
Mm-hmm. And so, it was a disappointing loss. White Sox fans were so disappointed. I could not believe how badly they played. It was just not good at all. So, it was the worst loss I've recalled. Any regular season loss the White Sox have had since I started watching 1990.
I mean, so Tim Anderson, you mentioned that error. Like, what's going on with Tim? Because he's leading the league in errors by
That's
like
right.
wide.
He's got 9,
margin.
right?
Yeah.
9 in so few games.
Take it easy, Dan. All right, he's got 9. But I mean, it's crazy. Is he this bad of a fielder, or is he just going through a really rough?
He's got the yips.
Yeah, he's not this bad. He's not a great fielder, but he's not this bad, as he started off with the 9 errors in the first month and a half of this season. I just think something must be going on that he's not talking about, because he doesn't do this. Last night's error, like I said, it hit him in the middle of the glove. It's lack of concentration. This is something off the field, maybe something that's hurting him with an injury he's not letting on, because the errors he's making are errors of focus. not like he's just throwing a ball away. He's doing things that are not great. He lackadaisical running a couple days ago, which I got onto him. He didn't do well. And then the next couple of days, he started hitting the ball well. Like, he goes through these cycles sometimes where he has to get his mind right. And that's what is going on right now. He kind of was defensive before the pregame and said, I'm not doing it intentionally. It's like, yeah, I would rather you do it intentionally, actually, because at least I would have a solution to what you're doing. You just have to focus better. And Tim Anderson is the leader of the White Sox. So as he goes, the White Sox go, and they see him making errors, leading the league in that. They're going to go that way. And the White Sox are tied with the Pirates in the league lead for errors. And that, is a recipe for disaster. Championship teams don't do that.
Yeah. I love Tim Anderson. I think he's the face of the Sox, obviously, and also one of the faces of baseball. I wish, as North Side fans that Evan and I we had someone like that on our team. What do you call the stadium?
I still call it guaranteed rate because it is what it is. It didn't start off as a stadium that was a sponsored name, but eventually people usually call it the Cell. That's a sponsored name. I don't call it Comiskey because Comiskey is its own thing. I know most White Sox fans just call it Sox Park generically, so I call it what it is, the G rate, whatever, Sox Park. But yeah, I don't subscribe to calling things like the Willis Tower, the Sears Tower,
right?
What their old names are.
And how's that tailgate experience?
Oh, cannot be beat. It is the best. I haven't been to a Bears one, but it seems far away where you got to just be like at the 18th Street stand, and then you got to like take a shuttle or walk down to the stadium. Right there in Lot B. There's no better tailgate, and people are accommodating. Like, we just were walking around and everybody's just offering us food. And I'm like, how much? Like, no, we do this for everybody. And the food's great. The brats are great. The burgers are great. Beers are usually awesome because they just have at the stadium, they have great beer. And I think I think the fans enjoy a good craft beer. And so when they do tailgate, they're not just bringing regular Miller Lite, which is nothing wrong with it. They're bringing something upgraded so they can get right before the game. Like, get that 7-8% before the game.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't been there in a minute. It's been a few years, but the last time I went, there was a guy walking around with a tank on his back, and he had a little nozzle hose here, and he was spraying margaritas in a glass.
Yeah.
You could did they still have that there? Because that's incredible.
I haven't seen that guy in a while, but now that spring has sprung and it's summer out here, maybe that guy will be back. But yeah, they used to do it all the time and have some good, delicious margaritas. And you guys have been to the ballpark. I don't know. I know you've been to Petco out there and out there, Dan. That selection is the only one that I've been out of the 17 I've been to that has a better selection than the White Sox. The White Sox are the Craft Cave, and now, it used to be called Revolution Brewing, but I don't know what they call it now, but beer everywhere. It's just great selection, and you not just whatever Modelo's or the Miller Lights, you get something from all these craft beers around Chicago and around the Midwest.
Is that your favorite part of the stadium then? Is the food and drink that they got going on there?
Yeah, because the stadium itself is pretty bland, pretty blah. The selections of food and drink are superior to most of all the rest of the ballparks. I'm going to Oracle this year in San Francisco. People tell me that is the best ballpark, but if I know anything about San Francisco, those beers are going to be $20 each.
Yeah, it's going to be cold too.
Enjoy that.
It's going to be cold. Wear layers.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to be like a 7:00 game in July, and people's like, yeah, it's going to be like 55 degrees. And that 55, I've been to San Francisco when it's 55 in October. It's cold.
It's cold.
Like, people say, oh, you're weak, you're soft, because I moved out there for 1 year and it was 55 when we traveled up to San Francisco. I was like, no, these people are real. It's cold. I'm a Midwestern from that was like 36 at the time. I was like, no, it's real cold up here. Yeah. No, you keep this expensive ass city.
So let's go back to this team. You're 500, right? 14-14.
Yeah.
And, it's World Series aspirations. Is it the year now, or is it next year, or where's this fan base at? And what are we feeling with these injuries?
The door is open now. The window is open right now. And if it's now or never, like, they still have people signed up for next year, but the window, as my guy, Chris Tannehill says, is Lucas Giolito's contract. And I think that runs up in 2023. So this year, next year, and that's it. If he doesn't sign an extension, you're losing one of your aces, even though they have Michael Kopech and Cease and then Lance Lynn. Losing Lucas Giolito then to free agency would hurt, and that would close a window for you. And also, I think Tim Anderson's contract runs up at that same time. So it's important the White Sox strike now. That's why the offseason for the White Sox was so disappointing, because they didn't really do anything. They got AJ Pollock, they got a bunch of relievers and Joe Kelly, they got Kendall Graveman. But as far as addressing right field specifically, AJ Pollock's a left fielder who happens to play right field for the White Sox. They haven't addressed second base. Now we have Lurie Garcia and Josh Harrison, two underwhelming options there at second base. They're not acting like a team that is in their championship window, just pushing for the next player. They signed a lot of good team-friendly contracts with their young stars like Eloy, Luis Robert, Tim Anderson, etc. So you can strike now when you have availability to get a big-time free agent, and they just didn't do it. And it's disappointing that Rick Hahn didn't pull the trigger. Most people blame Jerry Reinsdorf for being cheap, but that team is the 7th highest payroll in the major leagues. You just allocated the money to the wrong place.
So just interesting you bring up the offseason. I had a conversation with a Sox fan today about Carlos Rodon.
Yeah.
How do you feel about what, the outcome was there with him? I mean, I feel like, obviously looking at his stats so far this year, this deal was a bargain.
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to last? He's had injuries in the past that might say that it's not, but he looks fantastic. Could win the Cy Young in the NL the way he's going. Do you have any kind of, regret there that the Sox didn't re-sign him, or, what's your feelings on him? Like you said, they have World Series aspirations now. Why didn't
let
they
him
bring
walk
him back?
I, at the time, and still feel like the White Sox did the right thing by not re-signing Carlos Rodon. But all they had to do was offer him the qualifying offer, $18 million. He made $3 million last year, $18 million. If he would have denied it, the White Sox would have got like a compensatory pick somewhere in the second round. Fine, cool. But at least you're getting something for all the years you put in for Carlos Rodon. The reason why I didn't want him is the reason that you just said, Evan. He's injured all the time, and his White Sox career was mired with injuries, and even including last year, which was his best year as a White Sox. He was injured down the stretch, and when he came in to pitch in Game 4, started off hot, and then you could tell he didn't have the gas to pitch in that game versus the Astros. So at that time, I was like, all right, it's been good. Enjoy free agency. I hope somebody picks you up, Carlos Rodon, but I will not rail Rick Hahn if he doesn't re-sign you. My co-host, Sean Anderson, to this day still hates that they didn't pick up the option for Carlos Rodon, and they picked up the option for Craig Kimbrell, who is now playing for the Dodgers. So that's that trade that we made for AJ Pollock.
Yeah.
It's just a weird thing. I think in hindsight, yes, the White Sox did mess up by not giving the qualifying offer, but I will not hold Rick Hahn's feet to the fire because I didn't want Carlos Rodon back on the White Sox.
Okay.
Yeah,
fair enough.
That's what the Sox fan I was talking to was saying the same thing. And I was like, man, outside looking in, it's tough to say that after how good he's been leading the league in strikeouts and K/9 and everything. So, but
finally, the pitcher that the White Sox wanted for her years, and when they picked him 3rd overall a couple of years ago. But I congratulate him. San Francisco's a perfect place for him to play. Yeah. It's great. Marine Lair is keeping the ball down, and he's striking out people, so it doesn't really
dense there. So I'm curious about your manager. He's a lightning rod for media. People love to talk about him. And I'm wondering your take on him. My take as an outsider looking in, I think he's doing this on purpose. Okay. I think he's being this, unfavorable on purpose to take the media and the criticism on his own back to protect players.
Okay. I would hope that was doing that, but some of his end game moves are questionable, very questionable indeed. That's a strategy. Ozzie Guillen used to do that all the time. So he'd be like in the midst of a 5-game losing streak, and he would say something outlandish and get the focus and all the media on him. And so the players can relax and they can do their jobs. And if Tony's doing that to be a lightning rod, so Tim doesn't get the criticism for his 9 errors and the rest of the team doesn't get the criticism, I would love to see a little bit more of that. but I don't think he's that savvy right now. What
Yeah,
he's
he's-
doing right now, I'm a guy who says the managers don't matter that much in wins and losses, but he's actively putting out bad lineups. Like Lurie Garcia shouldn't hit third in your softball lineup, much less third in the major league lineup for a team that's competing for a championship. He hit third there twice, and he hit second in a series where we're going through an 8-game losing streak, and he wasn't hitting well. I usually think lineups management are negligible, but when you're putting a bad player up there for the third most at bats in the game, that is actively affecting your team, not putting your team in the best position to win. I think his bullpen management is fine for the most part, but he is way too interested in getting people in the game right now in April and May, and then do the stretch drive in September. And I'm like, you know what? These games in April and May count the same as those games in September. So if you do your work early, like those kids back when you're in high school, they used to do their homework on Friday, so they have their whole weekend free. I was the opposite. I used to do my work like on Sunday night or Monday morning. Yeah, exactly. It's like the White Sox are putting themselves behind the 8 ball by struggling early. And then later, those games in August and September are going to really matter because you lost all these games in April and May because you were like, oh, there's plenty of time. I need some urgency from the team. And Tony's the one who's got to set that tone.
All right. So Dan and I put together a list of 3 of our favorite White Sox, and we want you to rank them.
Mhm.
Michael Jordan, Ken Griffey Jr., and Manny Ramirez.
Ken Griffey Jr. was part of the 2008 ALCS or AL champions, AL Central champions. So 1, Jordan 2, because he technically played for him on a Crosstown series and was in their minor leagues. And it's amazing what he did, hitting 200 as a guy who just came off of playing basketball and a 30-year-old dude. That was an amazing feat. And Manny, that was a Kenny Williams. Hey, I'm going to get my guy eventually. By that time, he was toast. I think he only hit 1 home run as a White Sox. So it was a failed attempt. Huh?
Yeah.
I said it's Evan's favorite player, one of his favorite players of all
Yeah.
time.
Oh, I love Manny. Love me some Manny being Manny.
I mean, you're a Cub fan. Did you like that home run in the playoffs, though?
Wasn't bad. The guy can hit. He could wake up and hit a homer today. I think you put him on a roster today, you could still swat it. I think so.
He should be a Hall of Famer. I'm sad that his teammate is a Hall of Famer and acting like Manny was out there just doing steroids by himself. Like David Ortiz wasn't also doing it. Come on now.
Well, that's the whole reason he got in the media, right? Is to kind of ride that shit. Same with A-Rod. They're trying to change that narrative about themselves so they could be seen in a better light. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't like it. I don't like A-Rod. I don't like that broadcasting group anyways. All right. So we talked a lot about the White Sox and where they're going to be. Do you believe end of the year, going through the dog days, this team is going to be there and they're going to contend for a World Series in your heart of hearts?
No. It's a sad thing to say because we were just talking about it. Like, they don't play defense, and usually win the World Series, you got to be at least average to be in the World Series. They kick the ball around way too much. And to fix that, I don't know if Tony's in there every day saying, hey, infield practice before every game. That's what's needed. They need to practice being better at defense. You just don't get better at be a defensive player just by happenstance. You got to practice it. You got to go through the steps, got to get the footwork right. And so I don't know if Tony has that in him. And eventually they will win this AL Central because I think they're the best team out of here. But the Yankees are much better than them. The Blue Jays are better than them. The Rays are better than them. The Angels, even though they split that series, are better than them. The Mariners, like there's a bunch of teams. I'm sure the Astros are better than them. And not even including the National League teams that we haven't talked about. They're not as good as those teams, even at full strength. So, no, if I had to put down money right now, I don't even think they make it to the ALCS, which is where I would say is the lowest point where I would say, hey, that's a satisfying season. Even if they lose in the ALCS, progression. They're moving the needle. The next year would be the World Series. So I don't think and I don't feel that they're a team that is ready for the World Series, much less the ALCS.
What to follow up? Sorry, what positions are needed to be changed, or is it a front office managerial? What do you think?
Well, the owner, firstly, because the owner's the one who hired this manager. The
Yeah,
manager's never leaving unless the manager wants to leave. Tony is the second most powerful person in the White Sox. It should be your general manager. It should be your executive vice president, Ken Williams, or Rick Hahn. But no, Jerry usurped both of their authorities and hired his old friend who they fired back in 1986. And now there's no way he's allowing him to get fired again as a Hall of Fame manager. It will have to be Tony's call on his own. Like, hey, I'm too tired for this. I already got 3 championships. I'm a Hall of Famer. I don't need any of this garbage. Kind of at the end of the year when they would fail. So this is a thing that has to be done by those guys. And I don't feel like they're going to do it because Tony came back for a reason. He wants to be known as probably the best manager of all time. If you win a championship with the White Sox, with the Oakland A's, and with the St. Louis Cardinals, you become a manager that has never done anything else like that. I think Sparky Anderson has won with 2 different teams. If you win with 3 different teams, you become the best manager of all time. But this is not time to be experimenting. We need a guy that's a better tactician and a better guy, a better leader of men too.
Yeah. Herb, thanks so much for coming on our show. And it was just so much fun picking your brain, talking about the Sox and hearing you talk baseball. So again, he is at EC Nurwald. That's Lawrence spelled backwards, 23 on Twitter. Thanks so much, Herb.
Thanks, Herb.
Thanks, Evan. Thanks, Dan.
All right. Thanks again to Herb Lawrence for coming on the show. Again, he is at EC Nurwald 23 on Twitter. Dan, you mentioned you were at the game yesterday watching Kyle Hendricks shove 8 2/3. How did that go?
It was great. Packed house here in San Diego at Petco. A lot of people out. The city was bumping on a Monday night, and Hendricks came out and just like silenced the crowd. There were so many Padre fans around me, like murmuring to themselves, like, "Is this guy that good? Like, where did I know he was like Game 7 World Series, like started for the Cubs, but that was 6 years ago. Like, is he still that dominant?" And I was just kind of like, He's still that good. He just never gets, run support, and he takes a while to get warmed up. I think pitchers like Kyle Hendricks that aren't flamethrowers, that kind of rely on these like cement mixer, like circle changeups, and these 2-seamers that just place like surgical on the corners. They take a little bit to get that arm loosened up, but once they do, they're able to place it and put it and put the movement that they wanted. So it was awesome to go to as a Cubs fan. To kind of puff your chest out a little bit, to be proud of this team again, to wear all your memorabilia, and then to have all the Padre fans kind of like chirping you, like what the hell's going on? Who is this guy? Almost see a complete game shutout. It was awesome.
How are Padres fans too? Are they a little combative? I know I've been to games at Busch Stadium, and Cardinals fans are something else, but
no
Padres fans when you're playing against them, how's that experience?
I think you could tell like who the new fans are too, because they have a lot of like the new brown and gold jerseys, because they recently did that like 2-3 years ago. They rebranded. A lot of the older original fans kind of still wear those like Tony Gwynn pinstripes where they're like navy and orange. No one's wearing the intermediate jerseys where it's like navy and white that they were wearing these, like when they drafted Rizzo. Like, people hate that team. But they're fun fans, they know that they're going there. It's an awesome stadium. If you want to do whatever you want, there's like a restaurant, there is like games to be played. It's like a museum. You can go learn things. You could buy things. They have some of the best restaurants around San Diego with pop-ups inside. So like the food's great. The beer's great. If you're not a baseball fan, you'll have a great time. There's a park in center field. You want to take your kids and just like not watch the game, have them play in a park, you can do that. But overall, I mean, Padre fans they're not combative. They're welcoming. They usually kind of talk to you, ask you about your team. And if you know your stuff, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, he's a baseball fan. Doesn't matter." They're good fans.
Cool. Yeah. And that's awesome that you went there. Do you have a would you rather for us this week?
I do, Evan. Are you ready for this would you rather?
Yeah. What do you got?
I was thinking about it all day, actually. Stemming from last night. Would you rather, for the rest of your life, you have 2 options. Would you rather only be able to eat, if when you're eating chips, would you only be able to eat barbecue chips? So would you rather only eat barbecue chips for the rest of your life, or tortilla chips for the rest of your life?
Can I use dip with the tortilla chips there, Dan? Or do I have to? Okay.
I mean, it's a chip. It's a vessel for a dip. So if you want to use dip for a barbecue chip, you can too.
I mean, if you're going, no dips, obviously barbecue chip's a better option, but
No, dips are on the table.
The tortilla chip is just so versatile. You have to go with that one. I think there's just too many dips you can use that with. Buffalo chicken dip. You can go with the straight salsa. You can go guac. There's too much there. Too much opportunity there that I would be losing out on. So I'm going with the tortilla chips. What about you?
I think I just enjoy I think it's like El Rodeo. Is that the brand out there in the Midwest where it's like a green bag and it's like salted or unsalted? I forget what it is, but I would eat those like they were a bag of chips without dip. I'm tortilla all day. I like tortilla by themselves as well. A little salt on there. They're not bad. But yeah, as a dip chip too, I mean, they're top notch. So you said barbecue, what did you say? Buffalo chicken is your first thing you said as a dip. Is that your favorite dip?
That's my top dip. What's your top dip?
That's gross.
What? Buffalo chicken dip? That's a game changer.
That's like you're signing a contract because you're going to be wrecked for the next 72 hours. My favorite dip, I think, is just like a good.
That's a future you problem though, Dan. That's not in the moment problem.
What is it's like a Jewel brand? Is it French
Jewel
onion?
brand.
Is that what I'm thinking of? Like French onion dip? Or is it sour cream and onion?
Oh, you're talking just like a classic dip.
Classic white container. You open up the lid and like you put it out there. It's got like
French
little chives in it. Is a French onion dip? That with oh man, that dip is all time.
Buffalo chicken all day.
Okay.
All right. So
I got a
quick fast fact for you. Illinois Craft Beer Week kicks off this Friday. It goes May 13th, runs through May 20th. If you're curious what kind of events that are going on, check out illinoisbeer.org for more info. There's a beer festival at Union Station this Friday, so I'm gonna be hitting that up. So yeah, Craft Beer Week, check it out. And thanks again to our guest Herb Lawrence for joining us today. For Dan Slook, I'm Evan Bierman. You've been listening to the Domestic Draft Podcast. If you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to rate the show. You can find us on Twitter at Domestic Draft, on Instagram at Domestic Draft Podcast. Our website is domesticdraft.com, and you can watch the show on YouTube. Just search up Domestic Draft and drop us a sub. Thanks again for listening.
Cheers.
Cheers.